It's just coming up. It's a couple of minutes shy of 8:30 on Tuesday night. This is Ed Stagg. Lovely to have you with me in the midst of the most difficult economic times for quite a long time. One company has risen to the challenge of driving the economy forward, apparently, and been the recipient of a National Business Award in partnership with Orange. The CEO and MD of the company is a gentleman by the way. It's Richard North, isn't it? I was going to say his name's just disappeared off my screen, which is very handy. Richard, you nearly disappeared off my screen then. nice to have you with me. Thank you for that. And I'm glad you're actually on the end of the line and you haven't just run off somewhere. That's very good.
I'm sure there's always that moment, that lull where you have to, when it goes through your mind and you think, is he still there or is he there at all?
Yeah, sometimes you get about 3/4 of the way through a question, then suddenly you're like, you're not there, are you?
I'm definitely here right now.
Good stuff. Glad to hear it. Now, look, I mean, congratulations first of all. I mean, I say congratulations. Apart from the fact that I've had a look down of some of the awards that you've been offered before, and it just seems that this is now going to disappear into the great void of quite a few. In fact, are you getting used to receiving awards now, Richard?
We've been lucky. A lot of people say you make your own luck, but we've had a combination, I suppose, of a lot of hard work, being a very innovative company, I think, which is the core to the DNA of Wow Stuff, and all those things combined they've helped us garner quite a few awards. We've been lucky. The Orange National Business Awards is probably the pinnacle because that's probably the biggest awards for SME businesses, small medium enterprises in the United Kingdom. But yeah, we've picked up a few along the way. People who've recognised what we do and awarded us accordingly. But I think what's core to Wow Stuff as a toy company is trying to create the next big thing, the next toy with that wow factor. That's what we're about.
Well, I want to talk to you a bit more about the sort of innovating side of your area of the business. But I wonder, winning awards like this, did you ever set out to win an award, or is this just in respect of something that you've done, like a happy coincidence, let's say?
Well, you know what, I wouldn't say it's a happy coincidence. We do welcome winning awards. We do enter awards, and that's something I'd encourage all SMEs to do, because the publicity that follows if you win an award or score very highly is fantastic and opens lots of doors. It allows you to network much better than you could if you're sort of in that ether and not recognised. So I'd certainly encourage everybody to enter awards such as the Orange National Business Awards, which you've mentioned. Certainly they should enter those. But do we set out to enter them? We set out to first and foremost with a mission for our business, which is to create a wow factor. And the name of our business might suggest that as Wow Stuff. That's first and foremost. But as you develop the business and you get your products placed in retailers and success starts in the way of increasing in sales and increasing in profits, it's also nice to get recognised by these awards operations for what you're doing, and as I said just a moment ago, the big thing for us is not just being recognised, it's the publicity that flows from that allows you then, when you knock on the door of in our industry, Argos, Toys R Us, the major high street retailers, it's that little bit easier because people say, well, you've got the rubber stamp of credibility from a major awards organisation. So it does help enormously. And I can entirely understand that. I wonder whether the criteria you have to meet to actually win an award like this encourages good practice within business as well. That's a good point, actually. I remember saying on a number of occasions, it's like going through torture when you're going through awards sometimes, because the detail that it makes you look at in your own business and uncover it can be quite incredible. And I think the Orange National Business Awards is the one that really insists that you delve into lots of areas of the business, not just what is it that you do and explain that, but every area, every department, from finance to marketing to sales to distribution and so on. And it's interesting because as you do that, you're effectively writing or refreshing yourself with your own business plan. And that's very, very good to do. So, by doing this on a fairly regular basis, by entering awards regularly, particularly the top ones, that is what they make you do. And it's amazing what you uncover that you perhaps a lot of businesses, I think, would rather sort of brush under the carpet, but you mustn't ignore, because you do end up looking at a certain area of the business where the business awards have said to you, well, what is your ethical policy? What are your product safety policies? All these kind of things have to be examined and brought out into the open. And only when you tick all those boxes and you can prove to the judges that you've done a great job in each of those areas will you score highly and have a chance of winning.
Did it make you change anything?
Yes, I tell you where the biggest impact it had on us when we entered the Orange National Business Awards probably for the first time 4 years ago, I think it was, or 5 years ago maybe. First time we scored, I would say, at best average, but they give you feedback. So you can ask to have a report back from what the judges thought of your business across the different criteria that you'd had to inform those judges of. And it was by studying that we changed a few things in the business, very much towards the ethical policies. It made us think, what are we doing? We're a toy company. We're buying largely out of the Far East, China. Do we really understand the situation of the employees in those factories that are making our products? So it really made us look very hard and fast at that and make some changes. The second year we entered, we did markedly better. And I think we got a commendation, which was great. It's an incredible evening because you're meeting businesses at the very, very top of the game. You really are. And you meet some very well-known businesses as well, and you'll meet entrepreneurs. Peter Jones was at the last National Business Awards. In fact, he sat, within, I think, 10 feet of where I was sitting. So you'll meet some great people. But to try and win at those awards, if you fail on the first time, don't give up. Enter again. We did. We got better. And I think the third time we won an award. The fourth time we won, for us, certainly the most significant award, which was the award for innovation, which is what our business is about.
And good, of course, as someone that's running a business, to know that your business is progressing continually over those years as well. I was going to say that actually, if you were sitting near enough to Peter Jones, I guarantee if you were that far away from him at that point, if he'd have been horizontal, you'd have been right next to him, because he's about 7 foot tall, isn't he, Peter Jones?
He is. Yeah, he's. I think 8'5" is his official height, but he tries to play it down.
Yeah, he's got big shoes. That's what it is.
And it was quite interesting sitting next to him. He, his aura and his charisma is very, very strong. A little bit overpowering, I guess, for some people. But it was nice because we had Nick Clegg, the Deputy Prime Minister, there. Who was making a big presentation and talking about SMEs, that they are the driver of the economy, the British economy, and they really, really are. So to have the Deputy Prime Minister there, the Prime Minister himself did a keynote opening speech, had to be on video because I think he was out the country on that evening. But it really is attended by the luminaries. You've got lords, ladies, and all sorts of entrepreneurs, famous entrepreneurs, Peter Jones, but there were many others as well. So it's an amazing night, and it was quite interesting with Peter Jones as he stood up towards the end, and the ceremony was coming to a close. He was inundated with ladies asking for autographs and photographs taken with him, and they kind of charged towards him. And at first, as I looked up, I thought they were coming towards me, and of course they totally ignored me and went straight towards Peter. So
that's going to make you feel good, isn't it?
yeah, great for the ego.
Yeah, well, totally. Let's talk more in just a couple of minutes' time, Richard. I'll be back with you in a second. That's Richard North speaking to us tonight, who is the MD and CEO of Wow Stuff. Loads to celebrate. We've got loads of interesting stuff to have a chat with him about his background as well in just a few minutes' time. To 18 minutes to 9. This is Ed Stagg. We're talking to Richard North, who's a British entrepreneur, innovator and businessman, as well as the MD and CEO of Wow Stuff, and won quite a top-level National Business Award as well. Richard, tell me a little bit about your history then, because I was reading a bit about you earlier, and I wondered whether, being involved sort of, I like this word innovator. I mean, so, and it sort of, this interests me. And you, in your early life, I mean, your dad worked in a school, and you worked in a gun shop, and then interestingly, later on became an international champion marksman as well. Is there kind of a sort of playful, childlike quality, do you think, within you that you then transferred into your business world?
I guess there is. Have I ever grown up, I suppose? Maybe
you could
not.
Read behind the lines, between the lines, and see. So that might have been what I was saying. Well, you are involved in toys now for a start, but also within the business. I wonder whether that makes you a better business person.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because with the Olympics, such high profile for obvious reasons. I was down at the Olympics, very fortunate enough to have been able to attend it, and I got into a room where there was a number of business people, and that we were getting I wouldn't say a lecture is probably the right word, but it kind of felt like that, by a very famous athlete called Edwin Moses, who in the 70s had gone unbeaten in the 400 metres hurdles for 9 years, 9 months and 9 days. And he was talking about what it took for him to maintain that level of quality for such a long period of time. And as he spoke, I couldn't help but think some of those attributes were the same that you need in business, that absolute focus and that dedication. And, you talk about my earlier upbringing. My dad was a school teacher, my mum was a secretary, fairly modest income, I would say. We lived in a very modest house, a 3-bedroom, semi-detached house in a sort of a reasonable part of Wolverhampton, but it certainly wasn't affluent. And in those early days, a friend of mine had bought an air pistol, and my father bought me one, and I got that competitive urge. I wanted to shoot more accurately, be better. So I started entering competitions, and started to win some competitions with an air rifle, and it kind of went from there. So the early stages of my business career, I suppose, were, I wouldn't say they were formulated at that point, but they were certainly shown up that I was very competitive as a person, as an individual. I wanted to win. I wanted to shoot better each time I competed. Wanted to win that competition each time. Very, very competitive. And that was what I saw in Edwin Moses when he was giving his speech. I thought, I can recognise that thinking, that discipline, that absolute desire to want to be the very, very best. And, he mentioned that he knew the German athletes that he would compete against at the Olympics would be up training at 7 o'clock in the morning and be there till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So he made it his job, his mission, to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning and to be training till 6 o'clock in the evening. And it was very interesting because that was the mentality that I had before I went into business, before I had my first job, but as a marksman, as a shooter, wanting to be the best, wanting to train harder, longer, achieve more, all those things. And that's what I carried through in business, I guess. So, I went then on to become a sales rep, selling binoculars and telescopes. And finally, I actually went on to build a shooting sports business and acquired a very famous brand called Webley and Scott, a famous old gun maker, over 200 years old. But then I went into different things. I went into an online business, which I built and sold, and various other bits and pieces along the way. But I suppose I kept that absolute trying to win, not ruthlessly, not to the detriment of others, but to the benefit of myself, my employees, and my company.
Do you think there's too much of that ruthless quality that you mention in some business?
There can be. I've come up against competitors that you could honestly say are ruthless, that will use dirty tactics. So when you talk about the word ruthless in business, to me, it suggests somebody who's not playing fair. You can play tough, but you should play fair. So, sometimes I've been accused of being ruthless, but I think what they're really saying is extremely competitive, because I hope and believe I don't become unethical in how I operate. Now, that doesn't always mean that the other person likes what you do or how you do it. And that's true of many entrepreneurs. So there can be some people from the outside could look at it and think, that doesn't look fair. But probably if they looked into more detail and looked behind the scenes, they'd probably find that it actually was very fair, but that the person running that business was very, very competitive. But then you do get, yes, this other side that you see sometimes of people who are really, from my perspective, I believe, are really out-and-out crooks. But they are the absolute minority. And I think one thing about Great Britain that I really believe in and feel good to be British is that we play hard, tough, but fair overall. Now, that doesn't mean, that when you deal with big retailers like we do, that we can always go along with their terms and conditions of supply, because we would find that they're just too difficult to work with. But will they go out to try and put one over on you unethically? No, they won't. Now, we work internationally as a business with many retailers around the world, and I can honestly say that that's not true of other retailers around the world. They're not always playing fair. They might be more playing ruthlessly. So, it's working out what, the definition of that ruthless. Yeah. But yes, we come against people that are.
And the people that were involved in these business awards suggests, obviously, that these are, a huge deal. Not just the awards. I'm talking about these small to medium-sized businesses that we talk of. This must mean that they are integral to the economy, the wider economy. What would you say to people that are thinking about getting involved in business, the qualities that they're going to need? What would you have liked someone to have told you when you were starting up?
Yeah, well, lots is the first word that enters my mind.
The answer is probably what I would have liked.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't one single thing. And you ask a lot of entrepreneurs what bit of advice would they share, and they will all have a piece of advice, and they'll all be probably quite different, but they'll all actually be very valid. So as I've grown up through business and learnt how to do business in my own way, I suppose I've borrowed ideas. You mentioned the word innovator earlier on, and is it innovation? And if you define that word, that probably means completely new. But actually, most businesses that are successful are taking ideas that already exist and they're bringing them into their business and into their industry and mixing them with other things that the final product or service they create looks innovative, but it's probably an amalgamation of lots of clever ideas from other industries and other people. So I like to think that we don't steal ideas, but we borrow ideas, because most ideas have already been done, and in turn the company we've been inspired by and borrowed that idea from has probably also been inspired by somebody else somewhere in the world and borrowed it from them. So we try to, as a business, I try to really, really innovate, and by taking these different ideas and bringing them forward. And so my advice to other entrepreneurs or would-be entrepreneurs is be very open-minded, be like a sponge, and absorb as much as you can from different areas, from different people, from different industries, until you feel comfortable that you've got a business idea that's been thought out, potentially tried out in a very small way, so you don't bet your house on this new idea that you think is going to make you millions, so you can try it gently, maybe keep in a job while you're testing out your idea, so that you don't go wholly into it and then think, oh my God, I can't pay the rent, I can't pay the mortgage. So try it very gently. And you'll see that with most entrepreneurs. They're actually, although we're perceived, I think, as very, very much risk takers, I think if you delve down into the brains, the mindsets of entrepreneurs, you'll probably find that they're risk averse, that the risks that they take, that they appear to take, are very well thought out. They're educated risks, because they've immersed themselves into the product or service that they've created and the industry they're going to launch it within. So I don't think we're as risky as people think. But are we wealth creators? Are entrepreneurs wealth creators? And SMEs, absolutely they are. There'll be statistics that show that SMEs account for, the majority of the wealth creation and add to the economy more than just about anything else in the UK. I forget what the stats are, the percentages, but they are there. And would I encourage people to set up a business and be an entrepreneur? I don't know whether I would actually try and encourage people to go out there and do it, because it's down to that individual, and it's almost like for me to sort of meet somebody and say, yes, you should be an entrepreneur, I'd want to know all about them, see if they've got the qualities, drive, passion, hunger, they want their own business. Because I remember, not so long ago, sitting for a meal with some business people, and one of the ladies who wasn't an entrepreneur at that meeting, at that meal, she said, how do I become an entrepreneur? Because that's absolutely what I want to be. And when I chatted to her, I could see that she liked the idea of it, because she liked the image that had been created by the likes of Peter Jones, Theo Paphitis, Duncan Bannatyne, all these people you see on Dragon's Den. Hilary Devey is a lovely person, incidentally, and a great entrepreneur. But, you look at those people, and they didn't ask anybody how to be an entrepreneur. They just went out and did it because it was probably inside them to want to do it.
Good point. Richard, great to talk to you. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Excellent stuff. So Richard North, who's the MD and CEO of a company called Wow Stuff, but very successful in his own right, certainly with that company and others before it as well, and the recipient of a big business award from Orange too.